testing time, right? So we're going to bring the tables, literally bring the tables in the hallway full of treats, full of candy, full of all of this stuff. I mean, it's a bribe. It's not even, to me, it underscores the reliability of the entire purpose of what we're trying to test these kids to see how much they know.
I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed.
A few years ago, I started writing a fictitious story based on my time as an educator. It is called Taught, and the story was partially inspired out of anger and frustration fueled by burnout. Okay, actually, it was more than partially inspired by anger and frustration. But Taught has also become a vehicle for me to tell what I thought at the time, and in some ways continue to think, was and is the real story of teaching. I now realize that my perspective is not everyone's perspective, but there are some pieces of Taught that resonated with many educators. This podcast is an extension of that story, and I, a former teacher, will interview other educators asking them to share how they really feel about the current state of education. Why are so many teachers burn out? Why are so many, like me, leaving the field? We likely won't solve any problems or come up with any solutions, but we can create a community of voices that maybe begin the conversation around how educators can take back teaching. I'm Melissa LaFleur. Welcome to Taught, the podcast. Hey, everybody. I want to take a moment to say thank you so much for supporting this project. The podcast has been live for just a few weeks and has already exceeded my expectations in downloads. I don't advertise, so your shares and downloads are making these teacher stories heard. If you would like to share your story, or you know someone who has an educator story to share, please contact me via email at promelef@gmail.com. That's promelef@gmail.com. And now a few words about today's episode. I'm really excited to be sharing a podcast series in the month of May featuring a family of educators. This family is a husband and wife team who have dedicated the majority of their adult working lives to teaching, and then their daughter joined them when she decided to become a teacher also. We're starting the series with Dan and his interview. It's going to be split between 2 episodes. I hope you enjoy getting to know this family of educators. They have some very different takes on education from several different perspectives. So today, you have part 1 of Dan's episode. Today, I have history teacher extraordinaire Dan. Dan has worked in education for over 30 years, and in 1 year, he will be retiring. He made it to the finish line, but that doesn't mean he didn't experience his share of burnout. Today, Dan is going to reflect on his lengthy career and share with us what he believes are the key factors in rising burnout rates, as well as his perspective on how to survive it. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Missy. Great to be here with you.
So, in addition to being a teacher, you also are a musician and a grandpa.
Mhm. Yeah, the grandpa is first and foremost the most fun at this point, and we're actually looking forward to our daughter and their family with Mason, our grandson, moving up here from Oklahoma City soon. Actually, they have bought a house and they close on it in about a week and a half. So I think Katie's coming up again tomorrow. But they're in the process of moving up to the area, so we'll be able to spend a lot of time with them. So
Oh,
we're really happy about that.
congratulations. That's
Yeah,
great.
thanks.
Tell our listeners a little bit about you and what brought you to education.
Well, you mentioned the finish line, and we're looking at probably one more year past this year in the classroom, and that would give me an even 40 years. I had another teacher who was a high school history teacher. That's actually we go to church with, that he retired 3 years ago at 40 years. And at that point I said, that really sounds like a good goal to get to. And then I'm 65, so I have, I'm Medicare able and all that kind of stuff too after another year. So, yeah, 40 years, almost 39 years this year. But it has been a ride. in a lot of different schools, a lot of different, actually even cultures. I taught 3 years in Papua New Guinea on the mission field. That was a kick, learning about those cultures. I think we had anywhere between 7 and 8 different nationalities of kids in our classroom those 3 years, and it was fantastic. Started at a little school called Central Elementary. I had a principal. In fact, the interview process was a little different. I wasn't necessarily anticipating. It was my 5th interview that I'd had. Had 4 interviews previous to that. Did not get a position. And I had this last interview that the HR director had given me with a principal who had been there for a while. He was kind of old school, well, actually very old school. And we went on. I went over to the school, and he gave me a little walking tour. They were in the process of removing the asbestos from the ceilings, and so there wasn't anything in the classrooms. Open classroom concept then, and I don't even remember what we talked about. I think we talked about the Royals game the night before, a little bit of baseball, a little bit of small talk. And we get back to the office, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about the educational issues. And he shakes my hand and says, "Dan, thanks for coming in." And I'm out the door. So I'm thinking, I didn't get that job. Well, apparently he liked me for whatever reason, and he hired me for that. So that was my first gig.
I'm thinking the interview process looks a lot different now than it did when you did that first interview.
I wouldn't have a clue. I was in on your interview, if you remember, and I believe that was probably the best interview process I've ever experienced. Is where your administration has the team members or the teachers on the team that you're going to be a part of that are going to be part of the interview process, and that to me is the most practical, commonsensical way to conduct an interview when you're going to be working with those teachers more so than you're going to see the administrators. So apparently, to my knowledge, they don't do that now, and I've never been consulted on any hire, and I have 2 coworkers that work in our social studies department too. So, yeah, that was I think a great way to do it. So I wouldn't know what it is like now. I haven't really been on top of what's going on in teacher interviews since I got my last job 6 years ago. So, yeah.
Well, I didn't mention this, that you and I did work together. We worked together for 8 years, and we were on a team. And we worked at a middle school, and we had 6th graders, and it was a team of 4 teachers. Another one of our colleagues we are still good friends with as well. This podcast, I'm having to pull from my people because not everybody just wants to do a teacher interview. So although some people do, I have been contacted by some people that have said, hey, I'd like to tell my story. But for the most part, right now I am going to friends and family and friends of friend and family of friends and whatever I can get here. But we did start out, that was my first teaching job, actually, that you were on that interview. And not only do we not interview that way hardly at all anymore, very few middle schools have teams like we did then as well, because there were 4 of us. I was the English teacher. You were social studies, even back then. Our other friend was math, and then we had a science teacher. And so when the 6th graders came, they still had that self-contained classroom environment for the first little bit, and then they would rotate classes as a whole class as they got used to making the jump from elementary to middle school. And I have not seen that model used anywhere since we were doing that. And it stopped while we worked together.
Yeah, I haven't either. And I don't know if you agree with me on this, but that in my 39 years, as far as a secondary middle school format, I think that was probably the best as far as organizational, as far as having a grip on your students and knowing your students. the best ever.
In an environment when we say we're going to make this system based on what works best for children, and then we have something that is working really well for children, and we do something that works better, I do believe it was financial more than anything, that they
It
made the
usually
decision.
is. Yeah.
And it, I'm finding more and more as I do research, it's always
Yeah.
financial,
Yeah.
that we want to allocate funds differently. And it rarely is about what's best for kids. And I really think that, in my opinion, the powers that be need to take these words out of their mouth, because this is insincere. It's hypocritical to continue to say we're doing what's best for kids and then choosing to go routes that are best for our finances. And I'm not saying they're wrong for doing that. If, we all have a budget. I have a budget at my house. And if we don't have enough money to buy certain things, we don't buy certain things. But let's stop trying to package it in a way that makes everyone think that we're doing it for this altruistic reason that isn't the reason we're doing it at all.
Yeah. Good. I agree. 100%. And we have my wife and daughter both teach language arts in a different school district. And they had, I think, 2 or 3 different language arts teachers in 2 schools either resign or transfer. And they did not rehire language arts teachers. This is 8th grade. So my wife, who is a reading specialist, stepped up and volunteered actually to take 2 8th grade language arts classes this year. We're doing patchwork in some of these areas. And language arts, I mean, really, you're going to skimp on, you're not going to hire back language arts teachers, which is the basis of our education, is how to read, how to teach these kids to read and write. And so we're going to take from wherever we can to try to fill a position. And that to me, and again, and it's the bottom line's money, and it's wrong. I mean, I'll come out and just say it's wrong. And we have library media specialist in our building. She's been wonderful. Maybe the best I've ever worked with. She does great lessons with kids. She organizes our Veterans Day ceremony. She does really creative things with kids and has them do art projects and things. Well, she's retiring. And they in our district has already made the statement they're not going to rehire librarian media arts people, and so they're just going to have somebody, I think, that comes in like a para to check out books for kids. So we lose that wonderful opportunity to enrich a language arts program with kids simply because we can't afford it. And that to me is, again, it's just wrong. It's not what's best for kids, obviously, and here we are. So every district has its own story about that. So
They
yeah.
sure do. And every state. I think librarians keep coming up because everybody I'm talking to also, there are substitute shortages. It's really hard to find coverage for classrooms when we have a wave of COVID go through. And who gets pulled first? Our special education teachers and our librarians.
Yep.
And I feel like this is such a slippery slope because those people are professionals in their field.
Yep.
If they wanted to be substitute teachers, that's what they would have signed up to be. And by forcing them to go into classrooms and do this job, it really says a lot about the value that we put on those positions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So, this podcast is a safe space for educators to talk about burnout. And I think some of the stuff that we're talking about right now is really some of the fuel behind it. It's also a space to share our stories about what we're seeing that's, like I said, fueling this. You and I have talked a lot over the years about education and the flaws in the system. How are things going this year? Anything improving?
Good. Where I am, it's going well. we're in the process of kind of retooling things for MTSS, which is multi-tiered level of instruction. And that's kind of what we're talking about for next year, is how that's going to be implemented. Um, but you know what? The kids where I am in a small town, rural kind of setting are great. And in fact, I just have been back and forth with a parent who was concerned about her student who's failing because she didn't have her presentation ready to go. So I entered it in as a missing assignment, which goes in as a 0. So she emailed me, and it wasn't real. I mean, it was kind of like matter of fact. She didn't address my name, and I know that I understand that. I can get that. So I will always try to try to come back with a kind a response, try to get, try to win them back, because I know that they're upset about their student who's failing my class. And so we went back and forth a couple times, and I just said, hey, first of all, I love having your daughter in my class. And then I kind of explained what happened. Well, she came back with probably an essay on how she feels about the education process today, how she feels that her target was the technology, and that she feels that is really decimating the educational process today. Mentioned AI, mentioned the Chromebooks, mentioned a lot of that, and we have gone back and forth, and it's been a really a very valuable, I think, a dialogue. And so, the parents that really care, I think they're very concerned. I just enjoy having the relationships with the kids, and that's what keeps me going back. And I just go down to my little area at the end of the hallway and do my thing, and really just enjoy the challenge of working with the kids and getting to know them. Hopefully, teaching them something along the way about history of our state and geography. And
You mentioned that you are in a family of educators, that your wife and daughter are both educators as well. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how do we get 3 out of 5 people in a family that are educators? How does that happen?
Well, hey, it may soon be 4. So our son is a physical therapist. You talk about burnout. He's not into that. He's not enjoying it, which is kind of too bad. We don't like, you never like to see your kid not enjoy an area that they put a lot of effort and preparation into, and school and money. But
Yeah.
but he doesn't like it. He doesn't want it. You want to do it. He's given his notice. I think next week he's done, and so he is looking to get back into education, and my wife's going to kind of help him with that path. Yeah, Kelly and I. Kelly is she and I have taught middle school as long as she's been teaching. I've been in middle school, and so we love. We'll text each other through the day about little silly, funny things that kids do, and oh, you won't believe this, and back and forth, and we get a kick out of sharing notes, comparing notes, and comparing stories from school to school and class to class, and so that's a lot of fun. She lived with us for 6 years, and so we had a lot of time to be able to talk about school issues and stuff. She just recently is married now, so she's out of the house, but we still have a chance to go back and forth and text. My wife was in upper education. She was a college instructor, and then she got into administration in the college area. And then she actually began her career as an elementary first and second grade teacher, and she loved that. But then then we had kids, and she took some time off, taught a lot of piano lessons. We had to still find ways to pay the bills even when she took off. So and then she had a former professor at asked her if she was interested in possibly becoming an adjunct professor. And so she did. And to make a long story short, she got back into it. She got her doctoral degree, and she was a college instructor. But she wanted to get back into the classroom with kids, and get into the practical areas of instruction and reading. And so she got back into the public school as a reading specialist, and she's been doing that now for the last 3 or 4 years. And I mentioned the fact that she has 2 8th grade language arts classes now. So that's kind of what she does. But her area is literacy. It's funny because we met in a choir, and she's 3 years younger than me. So we really didn't take education classes together, but we both were in the education department and both have undergraduate degrees in elementary education. So yeah.
Did either of you have other family members that were in education, or this was just a passion for you that you decided to pursue?
My wife, no. Her dad was a machinist, and her mom, housemaker. She cleaned houses for a while. My mom was a teacher, and she taught in Lincoln, Nebraska. She taught in Wyoming. She taught in Dallas, Texas. And then she got married and just became I mean, that was back in the era that you didn't work, right? If you were married and you were a woman. So she became a homemaker and had my brother and me, and so she raised us. She did go back after when I think I got into high school. We got into high school, and she did go back to do some substitute teaching a little bit. But yeah, so she was a teacher.
Well, I've heard the stories, and I can see why she needed to stay home with you and your brother.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm going to switch tracks just a little bit here. I want to ask you, you've done elementary and middle school. These are two very different environments. What is your favorite and why?
Yeah, yeah, good. I'm glad you asked me that. But yeah, about half of my career has been in elementary and about half has been in middle school, and I have loved both. In fact, I went back, it was when we had our last eclipse in 2017. I went back and taught 1 year in 4th grade. That was a hoot as far as culture and different way of doing things. But I just thought, hey, I want to go back to elementary school and see what that's like. Well, it was a little different. There's so much required now of intermediate classes in elementary school, and I was kind of looking forward to get back to the middle school again. So I enjoy the elementary aspect because you have a lot better opportunity to know your kids. You have
I agree.
anywhere between well, I had 1 year I had 11 kids at Central, and I had as many as 24. So, but you have the same kids all year. You have that opportunity to win those kids over, work with those hardened kids, get to know their families. That's the advantage of a grade school elementary setting. That you're a family for the year. Middle school, but in elementary school, you're teaching everything, right? So if you have a subject level or a content level that you're not really so confident in to teach or that knowledgeable of, and for me it was science. That was always kind of difficult. You're teaching everything, and unless you work out with maybe some of your coworkers on the same grade level, that hey, I'll take your social studies, will you take my science? And I always made that plea at the beginning of the year with any school I was in, and sometimes it worked pretty well. But then after 15, 20 years of that, I decided I wanted to focus on social studies. I enjoyed the social sciences, the history, the geography, the aspect of the environment with the human environment interaction, all that kind of stuff. And so I went that route and was hired to teach 6th grade world history there, and loved it, just ate it up. And then after 6 years, I decided, hey, I want to try something new. As I look back on that now in hindsight, probably was a mistake. And I got into a couple of other, there really was kind of, I taught a reading class, taught a geography class. I don't even remember all the stuff that I was teaching at that point. And then they approached me to take the alternative program because they had a high school program and they had middle school kids going to the high school. It wasn't working out real well, so they wanted to separate that out. And I was approached to be the middle school teacher for alternative school, and I took it. But my wife was quick to remind me that was since I was no longer teaching a core class, I could be probably one if finances, if they had to make cuts, I would probably be one that would probably be cut out first. And so those are all those aspects of education that you have to weigh
Yeah.
before you take a position that's offered to you. You have to weigh all that out. What is the true motive for why they're offering me this, right? Are they offering me this because I have so many years of education and they're looking to cut me? So, whether that was the case or not, that has to be something that you discuss and talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of times when the budget years are good, schools are full of great ideas and new positions, but you're absolutely right. When the budget goes away, those are the first positions that go away as well. And you
Yeah, because
mentioned,
at 39 years, I am worth two new teachers, right?
right?
So if they cut me, they're going to save some money in their budget. So you always, you're maybe a little bit what's the term? A little bit paranoid about that, but I think that is something you have to be aware of. That's a possibility.
I think you're absolutely correct in that, especially as teachers get older, because a lot of this again does come down to money. You also mentioned some of those changes that were made in programs at the middle school that we worked at. That was really the beginning of those years where teachers lost a lot of autonomy in what they did with their classroom. So the movement in education at that time, and we're talking about mid to late 2000s, was all about we have to do everything the same because guess what? We're going to use this business model and every kid is going
Yeah.
to hit these targets. That was also No Child Left Behind. So we were all very concerned about funding and what that was going to look like if we
Oh
didn't meet
yeah.
those targets.
And the standardized tests. Oh boy.
And we've never really recovered from that in education, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, and we just finished our state testing last week, and actually we do it pretty well. I think they do reading and math, right? So we covered reading on Monday, Tuesday, take a break Wednesday, cover math on Thursday, Friday. But it's always very amusing to me, and I've been in this thing so long now, that it's testing time, right? So we're going to bring the tables, literally bring the tables in the hallway full of treats, full of candy, full of all of this stuff. I mean, it's a bribe. It's not even, to me, it underscores the reliability of the entire purpose of what we're trying to test these kids to see how much they know. So when I was in elementary school, we had to go to the computer lab because they didn't have Chromebooks then, right? So, and they got to use crackers and eat crackers and all this stuff while they're testing, and they're drinking stuff. And I mean, I'm hearing them crunching, literally crunching in the classroom because they're all, have to be quiet, can't talk, but you can hear them crunching their crackers and their what they're eating, they're drinking. So I actually saw the computer monitor in my elementary school take the keyboard and turn them upside down to get all of the crackers and stuff out of the keyboards between
Wow.
sessions. And that, to me, when I saw her doing that, I'm thinking, what are we doing? What
Well,
are we doing with this? I mean, this isn't legitimate. This isn't legitimate testing. We don't do that when we test our kids in our content levels. Why are we doing it for standardized state testing? To me, it's like we're just, oh yeah, you do really well on the test, and we're going to give you candy, and the principal's going to sleep up on the roof, or whatever it is. It's ridiculous to me.
I I
All good.
I know I agree with you. I think that the whole idea of all of these extrinsic things are the things that motivate you have gotten us to a place that we don't want to be in society in general. There's not The extrinsic motivation is that you have money to pay your bills. This is why you do work. And I feel like this is really hard for young people to understand at this point.
Yeah.
That's another topic, but I
Sure.
think that some of this is leading to this. I
Well,
agree with you.
and I don't even know. I don't think the kids even find out the results. I don't even think they know have the results. We do, but the kids, I mean, that's the worst teaching practice ever. Is worse, we want whatever we grade or assess to our kids, we need to get it back to them as to what they achieved, what they did, what their score was.
Well,
But
we did
these,
give preliminary results. As soon as I got them, I did. I would say, now this is not your final result, but this is how you did according to before they.
well, and I think we did that then, but I don't think they do that now. I don't think anybody does that in our state anymore. I don't know. It's like I said, to me,
Yeah, we
it's
need to go back to normalizing effort again.
yeah,
I I have a big values crisis with this, which is we have taken away the value of learning for learning.
yeah,
If you don't, I mean, school is really about having those building blocks. So, this is what the absolute minimum you need to know so that you can move on to do whatever it is that you want to do.
yeah,
But coming in and getting candy and parties and things like that so that I can assess whether or not you've gotten those building blocks,
yeah,
that sends a really bad message. It says that there's no value for doing this, so I have to give you a prize
yeah,
to
yeah.
make you sit here and contribute your best effort.
Now, you know what
And
I tell the kids? I tell my kids that I'm overseeing. We do seminar teacher. Our seminar classes are the ones that we administer the test to, and I tell them, listen, and I don't even know if it's true. I don't even think it is, but I'll tell them, hey, based on your efforts on these tests, you guys, this is where you're going to be placed in classes next year. I said we're talked a little bit MTSS. I said you have the level 1, 2, and 3, and I said so if you're going to blow it off, if you're just going to sit there and hit CCC, and I said I'll be the first to confess I did that when I was in school because when I was in school they timed the tests. You remember that? Did they have
yeah.
time tests when you were in
Oh,
school?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That freaked me out. I was always a slow test taker. If I was going to do it and give my best effort, it took me time to process. I have adult ADHD. I probably had it as a kid. My daughter has it, and we never did real on tests because man, if they were timed, we would freak out. Now you have all the time in the world you can take, and that's good. Somebody came along and figured out, hey, stop timing tests. But I would never do very well because I would freak out on the time element of
But I
those
can
things.
tell you this, nobody, when I was in elementary school or middle school or high school, gave a rip about those tests.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
didn't care. You could have asked my parents how I did on it was the ITBS, the
ITBS. I
yeah,
remember. I
Iowa
assessed
Test
those.
of Basic Skills. Yeah.
Yeah,
And my parents would have said the what? They didn't have
yeah.
a clue.
No,
No one ever talked to me about it. It was
no.
something that we sat down once a year. We
Yeah.
did it. And
Well,
you
it took
filled in your
forever.
little bubble sheet.
Took
And that
forever
was
to do it.
that.
Took forever to do it. Hey, in Olathe, back in those days, they had after school classes on taking strategies before the ITBS were assessed. I actually volunteered to. They paid you a stipend, but I volunteered to oversee that. And I still remember a kid sits down and that first, and it's like he's obviously been in these before. And the first thing he says to me is, he said, "When do we get candy?" First thing he said was, "When do we get candy?" And he said, "Yeah, the last class I was in, we went down. The teacher took us down to the vending machine and got us all candy."
Yeah.
And it's like, I said, "You're not, for one thing, you haven't done anything. You haven't done anything to deserve candy any. But see, these kids are used to just getting rewarded in some cases before they do anything, and
Yeah.
that's
And again, I think it is that we kind of have lost our way in terms of why learning has value to us.
yeah. Well, you mentioned intrinsic versus extrinsic, and it's right now it's all extrinsic motivation. when we're doing all this dog and pony show, just to take a standardized test.
Now, I will say, I've worked in a couple of different states and a few different districts at this point, and I will say that I don't see that piece in the same way that I did when I was in your area of the world. The test was just the test,
Yeah.
and we didn't have snacks. They could bring they could bring in candy, like hard candy, peppermints, and gum. And as they tested, I would go around and everybody got one stick of gum for the day, and everybody got a hard candy to suck on. And
Yeah.
that was that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
Yeah.
this big. I know exactly what you're talking about. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that some districts are realizing, hey, we've got to scale back here, because the bottom line is nobody wants to hear this, but it did not matter which district I taught in, which curriculum I used, which prize there was, which test it was, which whoever state assessment, whoever who was, results did not change that much, even from teacher to teacher, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
I've worked with some people that I did not think were nearly as qualified as I was to teach the content that they were teaching. I've
Yeah.
also worked with people I thought were more qualified. And
Yeah.
when our results came in, if we did the average, they were almost dead even.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we do a social studies assessment, state assessment now, but it is it's a project based deal.
Yeah, we did that too. And
Which, great. That's great. But here's the thing: every teacher assigns something different. And here's another thing. Tell me this is valid, we grade our own. We went to a meeting 2 years ago where it says, okay, yeah, we're going to do these project based assessments, and basically you can do anything you want to. You have a good project, whatever, and here's your rubric, and this is what you need to do and you can do anything you want, basically whatever you want. You can kind of move it in and tweak it and make it into an assessment and put it into the rubric. And it's like, oh, okay. And then you're going to be grading your own students. Oh, okay, so we can give them all fours. And they said,
Exactly.
well, no, probably, but here's the thing: if they don't get fours, you can redo it until they do.
Yeah.
And I'm just shaking my head like, unbelievable. Now, I don't know. I have not heard as a teacher. We've done this now. This is the third year. I've not seen a result. The first year I did it, we were supposed to send in samples to our superintendent that oversees that. That's our curriculum leader. And so I sent in samples. I sent in some good samples. I sent in some fair samples. I didn't put any bad samples in, right? So did the other teacher. And last year, hey, do you want the samples? Emailed, want the sample? No, we don't need the samples. Just send me your scores. Just this. And this year, I haven't even heard from her on scores. So it's built into our grade card or something. But and the other social studies teacher, who's a first year teacher, was asking me about it. I said, yeah, we'll figure it out. I said, right now I'm going to do these where in the world projects are going to be my state assessments.
There you go.
So I can just look and say, okay, this kid, yeah, he got it, 3s, 4s, whatever, and there's 4 areas to assess. But it's a joke.
So this is another thing that was going on way back when you and I were teaching together, and it's even more prevalent now. These new initiatives that come up that all of a sudden, this is how we're going to do this. And the people that are the ones that are having to put those out, whether it's a superintendent, whether it's a administrator, whomever it is, they do not have the time
No.
to build any accountability in.
Right.
And without accountability and direction, it's just one more thing. I'm going to be honest with you. My last year of teaching, we had to do this. Of course, I was, 5th grade, so I do it all, state assessment and this piece for social studies. I just didn't do it. You know why? Because I didn't do it the year before and no one said anything to me.
Yeah.
And the year before that, didn't do it then either.
What if
'cause
we could
nobody
do that
said
with
anything.
taxes? Can we do that with taxes?
Well, in education, I think we figure out pretty quickly what things we can do that with because we already have too much to do. There's
Well, and
not
you
enough
know,
hours in the
yes,
day.
and you know as well as I know, I do. The whole thing is a big game. It's
Yeah.
a big game, and yeah, there are aspects of it I'm not playing. But here's the thing: as a company man, as a company guy, as a teacher in a building, right? So I just go to my room, do my thing, and I don't, you know, I hear what you saying. I hear what you say we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay, but guess what? I'm not buying in.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. And, I wrote about it in my book.
Yeah,
So I
you
was
did.
like, ooh, this is, should I put this in here? And I actually had someone who was not a teacher contact me. And she said, ooh, I don't think you should put this in a fiction book because it just really paints a bad picture for the rest of society. And I said, well, it happens.
Yeah,
And I'm going to leave it in there. I appreciate your input, but society needs to know that these things happen not
this is real
because
life.
we are bad people, not
Right.
because we don't want to do our jobs, but because
It's,
there's just not space to do it all
yeah.
and, sleep. So,
I wish I knew.
the word is out. Educators' voices matter. And you're proving it. In just 3 weeks, Taught, the podcast, has reached over 100 downloads. Now, let's build a community together. Have you listened to an episode and wished you could join the conversation? My goal is for these stories to spark action, to help us all find ways to improve the education system we care so deeply about. Now, your voice can be a part of this change. Find Taught the Podcast on Instagram at Taught the Podcast, Facebook at Taught by a Teacher, website taught.buzzsprout.com, and our YouTube channel Taught at Taught 2022. Your support in any form makes a difference. Like, subscribe, or follow us on these platforms. If you're able, consider becoming a supporter at the website taught.buzzsprout.com or purchase the book Taught by a Teacher on Amazon.com. All links are in today's show notes. Before I sign off, I want to say, if you liked today's episode, and since you're still with me, I'll assume you did, be sure to check out my 3-part series featuring Kelly on special education teacher burnout. Today's episode was produced and edited by me. The theme music is by Otis McDonald featuring Joni Inez. If you know someone who might enjoy these conversations, please share the podcast episodes as much and as often as you can. It's as simple as copying the link you use to access today's episode and sending it in a message or sharing it on social media. I'm a small, independent operation, and your shares broaden our audience. Perhaps you or someone you know will be inspired to talk about teacher burnout. If you would like to get your voice on my podcast, contact me via the link on my webpage, taught.buzzsprout.com. Coach, speaker, and author Rashid Ogunlaro said, "It may take many voices for people to hear the same message." Join me in being one of the many voices rising up to get the message out around educator burnout. This is Melissa Lepore. Thank you for listening to Taught, the podcast.